Dr. Edwin Wangoli, a lecturer at Pony University. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Dr.
Thank you for having me.
It is good to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next to him is Robert Makoha, who's a political analyst as well as aspirant for the Nakuru Township constituency. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Robert.
Thank you, man.
All right, gentlemen, let's just get straight into it. Dr. Edwin, I'll begin with you. From where you sit, if you look at just what happened over this weekend specifically,
yes,
and today being actually the last day of campaigns, you know, by 6 p.m. this will be it, and so we're likely to see a lot of activities today. But there have been instances of political violence that have been witnessed in some of the campaign, you know, trailers. From where you sit, what does this mean really? Sounds like there's so much at stake.
Thank you for the question. For me, what it teaches me is that, one, our bad manners have not gone. That our politics are full of framing, and when we get the framing wrongly, then we get the work wrongly. In this case, the by-elections have been framed as a national election. The by-elections have been framed as a one-term against two-term.
Right.
The by-elections have been framed largely on national issues instead of them getting contextualized on the issues. So the people in Malava are not voting for issues in Malava. The people in Kabuchai are not voting for issues in Kabuchai. The people in Mbeere are not voting for issues in Mbeere. The people in Magarini are not voting for Magarini. What has been created are issues beyond the people. This is no longer an opportunity for people to listen to aspirants and elect their representatives in parliament or county assemblies. Instead, it is the political aspirations of national leaders that are at play. And for me, it takes us back to the problem of poor framing. It takes us back to the problem that when situations are defined wrongly, then whatever we do, the outcome is going to be wrong. So therefore, who will be electing will not be MCAs or members of parliament for those specific areas. Instead, the people have been thrown into the future of 2027. It's very unfortunate.
Right, and it's quite unfair, isn't it, to the people, because some of these constituencies have not had leaders since 2022, but somehow they can't focus on that.
Exactly.
They are drowning in the one-term and two-term chants, as you said. So who controls this narrative?
Unfortunately, and I'm going to, as a student of society and a student of good governance, I'm going to blame the people. And I keep saying this. I think the people have allowed the narrative to be taken over by political leaders. In my thinking is a good example of the tail wagging the dog. That in my thinking, the people may want to blame the political leaders, national leaders, for coming to Mahdi, that's the local issues, but they only do that if the people on the ground are not invested enough, are not agents of their own destination. Because when people put their foot down, they'll force national leaders to focus on their issues. Instead, what we see now are non-issues, you know, and it's quite unfortunate.
Right. Robert, I'd come to you. You know, you're a very active politician, I'd say. You know, you're going for a particular seat come 2027. I mean, was this predetermined as well right from the start that eventually it would have been against these two key leaders, I'd say, those in Kenya Kwanza, the head of state, that is President William Ruto, as well as those in opposition, could be Rigathi Gachagua, could be Kalonzo Musyoka, but, you know, whoever would be the face of the opposition. And so was this predetermined right from the start? Is this a battle of the big wigs rather than, you know, a battle of the aspirants on those particular respective seats?
Actually, thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Based on the current political temperature that we are experiencing in our country, Kenya, for me, I'll say that it is a battle for the bigwigs, and that is President Ruto and the united opposition led by His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua and Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. You know, this is a time that is going to define the future politics of President Ruto and their influence, as well as that one of Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, should he be chosen to be the united opposition flag bearer. Now, whatever that is going to act as an outcome, for example, for Malava, Kisa, Mbere North, name them, or the 21 by-elections that you mentioned, that will be a litmus test for these two big leaders. And from there, you know, that is the trajectory that Kenyans are also going to follow to know who is more popular based on what they have been doing. For President William Samoei Ruto, you know, people have complained every now and then because of his regime, that in as much as he says he wants to elevate Kenya to the next level, people who are supposed to be served by his administrations are in constant complaints, especially in key sectors like education, where we have seen the funding model at the universities at turmoil, the lecturer strike, and even the cutting down of the free education funding from 22,000 to 12,000.
Right.
When you go to the health sector as well, you realize that SHA is still a big headache to those people who go to hospital. So these are the things that the constituents, or rather the electorates, are going to base on to determine the scorecard of any leader who has fronted a given candidate.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, for politicians, it's like they can't help it really, especially for those that are going for these particular seats. You know, it is important for them to get endorsed, isn't it? That, you know, so and so has backed my candidacy, and so they can't help it that, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to be a battle of the top leaders. For me, now the worst part is that endorsement, because, for instance, if you are endorsed by a person who has a dark history or who has failed to deliver for the people, definitely the people are not going to be on that side, and eventually the outcome will be negative if you are an aspirant. So the scorecard for our sitting president, William Samoei Ruto, and the sentiments that he may have made before, right, sentiments similar to that one of, ordering the police to shoot the people on the leg. You can imagine being endorsed by a person who's advocating to have the people shot, and you are his candidate. People are likely to believe that once you also get to parliament, you are going to sing to the tune of that party leader, and therefore they may shun away from voting for you. Right. Yeah. Speaking of President William Ruto, Dr. Edwin, isn't it interesting that he's sort of steered clear of actually campaigning and has left that to Kithure Kindiki, has left that to Musalia Mudavadi, as well as other leaders, Gladys Wanga, who we've seen have taken to the ground in Kajiado, in Kasipo. But for him himself, he's actually steered off the campaign trail. From where you sit, how would you read into this?
I read a number of things. On paper, the president has steered away from the by-elections, probably to refer to the fact that all politics are local. In reality, he hasn't. In reality, his hand is on the ground. The people are campaigning the ground, whether it's in Malava, or it is in Mbere, or in Magarini, or in Kabuchai, all are his hands. But for me, this was an opportunity, because the president, this comes hot on the heels of the president's State of the Nation address, in which he gave us the aspiration of how he wants us to become the new Singapore, so to speak. I have a problem with that, that State of the Nation address, because I found it more aspirational rather than evaluative. But that being said, is that this was an opportunity, because Singapore got where it is because of good governance. This was an opportunity for the president and his party and his coalition to show us that the days of dirty politics are gone, that now we are changing our script, that what we are going to do is to allow the people the opportunity, because what the people are doing is the people are electing their representatives in parliament. Why does the president have, or his coalition, why do the other nationalists, why do they have to come on the ground and influence how people elect their leaders? Even as we look in terms of who speak to run for what, whether in Malava or in Mbere or in Magarini, where you can see the hand of national leaders in picking the candidates. The point is that I think these by-elections show us that, like I said from the beginning, our bad manners in politics haven't ended. And if we are going to have to move forward, we are going to have to clean our governance. And governance begins with the people that are elected. As it is, we are going to elect people, we are going to elect representatives on the wrong premise. Yeah. We are going to elect people because they are loyal either to the president or they are loyal to a political opposition. And yet what we need is to elect representatives who are competent for their work. In my thinking, we are where we are because largely, by and large, we have elected leaders who are loyal rather than leaders who are competent. And therefore, if you get an example, for instance, when the president was giving the State of the Nation address, which for me is supposed to be a report card, coming to tell us, look here, since I was here last, this is what I've done in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure. Instead, the president came up with a new shopping list. And we have expected that if we had members of parliament who are competent and who know the purpose of the State of the Nation address, they would have been questioning the president on not sharing evidence of what he has done and instead coming up with a new promise of what he's going to do in future.
But in all fairness, he did say some of the things that he'd done on the recruitment of teachers. He was able to give a bit of his report card.
You see, the State of the Nation address is not a favor that the president does to the people. The State of the Nation address is a constitutional requirement for the president to come and tell us what has he been doing as our president for the last financial year. If you like, the president is a monitoring and is a self-report. He's saying, since I was here last, I've done A, B, C, D, and A, B, C, D. That needs to be strong on evidence. It needs to be strong on data. The president gave a very good performance. I want to give it a presidential poetry. If I was in a drama festival, I think I'll have scored the president 10 out of 10 out of performance. But this is not about performance. This is about evidence on the ground. If he has done things, where is the impact of those things? What he needed to do was to give us, I have done this, I have done this, this is the impact. Because, come to think of it, the State of the Nation address is supposed to be an address that members of parliament then oversight over. You can only oversight if people talk about what they have done and you oversight the evidence. In the absence of evidence, if the speech is about the promise, if the speech is about the future, it's nice, but you can't oversight the future.
Right. And we'll come back and talk about just the behavior of member of parliaments during that State of the Nation address and what they were chanting and what that means. Yes. But Robert, you know, it would be quite interesting, wouldn't it, when we see Kithure Kindiki, who has been camping in Mbeere North for the better part of, I'd say, the last 2 weeks, as well as Musalia Mudavadi, who has really been camping in Malava constituency, and they failed to deliver these 2 seats to the president. He sort of steered clear of the campaign to allow them to run this and to prove, you know, that they are worthy to be within the team that will be planning for the 2027. And that, you know, when it comes to power sharing deals, they should actually be considered because they delivered these 2 seats. But, you know, if they lose, then what does it throw into the ring in terms of the performance of Kithure Kindiki as well as Musalia Mudavadi on the ground? Okay,
first and foremost, I believe that it was wrong for the president to allow the 2 hit the ground in the name of politicking, to campaign for their respective candidates. Okay. I mean, in the respective constituencies or even wards, because as the constitution of Kenya states, I don't think technocrats of the caliber of Mudavadi are also supposed to go out and campaign. People like the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula and Etar are supposed to go out also and chant 1 or 2 terms. These are the people who are supposed to be in office. If it is for Mudavadi, given that he holds the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also the Prime Cabinet Secretary boss, he's supposed to be putting things in order in these ministries across the country. And it is so unfortunate that it's the same person we are seeing in Malava claiming, or rather telling the the incumbent governor of Trans Nzoia that he will be a one-term governor. So that one alone, those of us who have gone to school will not take them seriously, because these are the people who wanted to elect a member of parliament so that he can go and make the law. Yet there are the same people who are breaking the law of the land and the law that is on the paper. So for me, it is very wrong to see a whole deputy president, Kithure Kindiki, crying foul about Gachagua, begging Gachagua to respect him. At time, he's supposed to be in office working. And by the way, how do you get threatened by a person you impeached? That should not be the business of the government, and therefore, their impact on the ground is likely to be as a result, to bring about a humiliating defeat. Because from where I sit, I can see that there are somehow confused and there are forcing things. Just like Professor put it earlier on, if you have performed, why the worry? You should sit there and believe that people will, based on your track record, to re-elect you back into office. People will see what you have done. They admire you to take their son or daughter into the same administration so that you can encourage him work the manner in which you are working. But you see, them coming out of their offices to flog the grounds in the name of campaigning clearly indicates that they have failed, and they have to go and prove a point and defend themselves that, you see, we have done this and this. And some of the sentiments that are coming out of the people of the caliber of Farouk Kibet are also discouraging, because a whole PA to the president telling people that if you don't vote the government candidate, then forget about development. Our constitution of Kenya is very clear. Whether you vote for a given person or not, you are entitled to development. And that we must always have two sides. Because if all of us again voted, that will be a 98% or 99% turnout. What about the other side? So they should not intimidate the people whom they are going to sell their agenda to by saying that if you don't vote us, then you forget about development. Then why is that race there in the first place?
Right.
Yeah.
But isn't the pressure a bit more as well on the shoulders of Kithure Kindiki, having, had Gachagua impeached, he came into office from Mount Kenya region. Essentially, he's supposed to deliver the Mount Kenya vote. And so if he fails to do this, then it's a question on, will he still be the running mate in 2027? Okay,
if there is a person who is more worried than the rest is the current Deputy President, Kithure Kindiki. Kithure Kindiki, for me, is a person who benefited something that he had not worked for. If we were to base on the 2022 general election, which support do you think Kithure Kindiki delivered to the administration of William Samoei Ruto? So he is worried that that position may be taken away from him, and is not supposed even to complain. Because just because he comes from the mountain side of the region, it doesn't mean that he was the choice for the people. Okay. Secondly, also the impeachment of Gachagua was somehow unconstitutional, because claims later on came out that people were bribed. You had a person like the Embakasi member of parliament recently, when the president bashed the MPs that they are corrupt. He reminded the government that he was aware that senators and some of the MPs received that 1,000 bribe to complete the process of impeaching Gachagua. So you can see a person, a young man of my caliber, coming from the mountain region, who saw that Gachagua was unconstitutionally ejected from the deputy president position. He may not be happy with this man called Kithure Kindiki. And we also right now have politics of Luo Nyanza. These people seem to be giving out a condition to the president of Kenya that if he wanted their support, then he must automatically make them reserve the position of the running mate from their region. You see? At the same time, there are people who are also saying that the president this time round may opt to pick a running mate from the western region of Kenya. So by so doing, it means that Kithure Kindiki may be told to step aside. That's why he's working very hard breaking the law because it's not supposed to be campaigning, just to ensure that at the end of the day, his position is retained when the 2027 elections come nearer.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Eden, I'd love to draw your attention to Kasipul constituency.
Yes.
This is in Homa Bay County, where the late member of parliament, where a passed away was buried, and the son, came up and decided to run. However, there's been a lot of tension and violence within Kasipul constituency. Police officers are, hacked with machetes. We are having residents who are bearing the scars of a very brutal campaign. We've seen the IBC, call for a stakeholder engagement meeting dialogue of the two leading aspirants. The police have been to that region as well, but the tension is still high. What could be leading to this tension in Kasipul?
I think Kasipul is an example of what is wrong with our politics. One, our politics is idiotic. And no wonder that I think an idiot has a better chance of thriving in our politics than an idiot. An idiot to the extent that, not that you're stupid, but an idiot to the extent that you don't regard the law, you don't follow the constitution, you don't respect the people. Your goals are important, and that's the end of it. If you take the example of Kasipul, and the young man Boyd trying to run to replace his father, there's nothing wrong with that. He has a constitutional right to set up himself and ask for people to vote for him. Yeah. The other gentleman, I think, the top leaders, you talk to the gentleman called Oroko, yeah. If they respected the people, and if this was about institutions, and this is about the constitution, and this was about the respect of people and governance institutions, you'll simply go out there and sell your manifesto. You'll still simply go out there and pitch, and the people would make a choice. After all, this is a marketplace of political ideas. But instead, the disregard for the people, the thinking that the more idiot wins, the more violent person wins, And I think the reason why, and this happens even on the national scale, that this does not become a marketplace of competing ideas. And then the people are given a chance to pick on what idea resonates with them on the ground. Instead, this is a competition of who is louder. It's a competition of who is more violent. A competition of who can sell what, who can buy what. And I think for me, this is an indication, and I think IBC is well cancelled, that this is an indication of what is going to happen in 2027, and probably at a higher level. And therefore, what we need to do is for the IBC to put its foot down. How can we run our politics? Because the way we run our politics then has implications to our governance. Right. It has implications to who comes into the leadership position, who comes into parliament to oversight the executive. When we have a situation where people who are voted to become members of parliament, to become MCAs, disregard the people, they think that I became MP or I became MCA because national leaders came and campaigned for me. What you have a leader, in quotes, not for the people, but you have a handmaid for the executive. Mr. Makaka spoke about the speaker, Mr. Wetangula, a very consummate legal mind. The speaker is a national speaker. He's the speaker of the National Assembly that oversees the executive. What business does the speaker have going to Kabuchai or Malava to campaign? So what happens if the person who the speaker is campaigning for does not win in Malava, and the opposite one wins? Let's say Seth Panyako wins in Malava and goes to parliament. Would he be his speaker? I mean, I don't see the reason why Mr. Wetangula would want to go on the ground and sell his name and sell the position of the national speaker to local politics. Let the people choose who the people want to represent them, and let them come to parliament and you work with the people's representative. So for me, this is an indicator of national leaders who don't respect their positions. Because Mr. Wetangula must know that he's the Speaker of the National Assembly. When he goes to Malava, when he goes to Kabuchai, when he goes to Magarini, people see the Speaker of the National Assembly. How does he want the people to respect him when he sullies himself and goes to the ground and there are the rumors that he's probably the hand behind the violence that was in the home of the Kabuchai MP, the destruction of the house. How does he expect people to respect him as a national leader when what he's doing is contrary even to our constitution? And I'm surprised that our institutions like the National Cohesion and Integration Commission have moved with speed to show that when you break the law, we come for you. Which takes me back again to what I've been saying all along, that our failure to respect institutions, our failure to respect the law is the cause of our problems. And so our leaders are telling us one thing, the vision of Singapore, but on the ground they're doing the complete opposite.
And does that explain, there was a headline on the Standard on Saturday where one of the candidates for Mbeere North, Leonard, who has got actually allegations of graft against him and is still, the candidate of UDA party?
That's a very clear example of, you speak one thing from one end of the mouth and the other end of the mouth is saying something completely different. Usually I say that one of the biggest weaknesses of our democracy are political parties. I would have expected that a political party or a political alliance like Kenya Kwanza would have done due diligence to find out who is this guy called Leonard, who is this guy called Wamthendu. Seriously, if EACC is on record saying this person should not be running, I think the Chief Justice is on record saying that the fact that UDA went ahead to nominate Wamthendu as their candidate in Mbeere is wrong. I mean, so two arms of government have clearly said this should not happen. In my view, this is a good example for IEBC. I listen to Dr. Alutalala all the time saying that we need to evaluate this IEBC on what they are doing now and not evaluate them on past mistakes. For me, this is an opportunity for IEBC to show us that they are a different IEBC. Because if they don't step on the ground and show, because IEBC has a lot of, is suffering from lack of trust from the people. This is an opportunity for IEBC to show us that, look here, we know the law and we are going to enforce the law. The idea of looking sideways and saying, that's not our role, the role of ASC, I think it's an opportunity for our institutions to work the way the Constitution expects them to work. I think if our institutions were working as they are supposed to work, we wouldn't worry about what the president does or says. We wouldn't worry what the leader's national speaker does, because the law will take its course. So for me, this is an opportunity for us to say, can our institutions work out the way they were intended to work? And the people in the helm of those institutions should enforce the law and follow the law.
Right. Robert, I'll come to you. Let's talk about this institution called IBC, and in the famous words of the late Raila Odinga, I would call it like the referee of this game. It's okay for them to start on a clean slate, forget past mistakes. These are new leaders. They have not sat in these offices before. They have not made decisions concerning the IBC before. Essentially, they're starting on a clean slate. And this is also a test for them, really, on how they can conduct credible, free and fair elections, how they can ensure that at the end of the day, somebody will sit down and be happy with the results they'll see on television concerning some of these respective seats. And so how have they conducted themselves so far, this IBC?
For me, I'll say that they are below average because, one, by this time, as we speak, normally, if we were to carry out the roles of the IBC, then the first role would have been voter education, which we haven't seen that these people have, despite their team, in Gaspol, Magarini, Kisa, and even in Mbeere North and others, which I may not mention. But as per now, we are only hearing about their campaigns. What about that voter who doesn't know or whose name is appearing in 2 polling stations? Will he or she be allowed to vote or not? We haven't seen them rectifying such like mistakes. Voter education is very crucial because we have people who are willing to vote for their preferred candidates, but again, they doesn't know how to tick in the right box. That is the work of the IEBC before the elections. And you cannot say that maybe we did that one in the last general election, because we have new voters on board, voters who have never come out to exercise their civic rights. Right. This time round, they are on board. Instead, we are just hearing the same IEBC coming up with allocations, just like the way citizens are also putting it, that we are going to test ourselves, our credibility as a commission on this coming by elections. Right. Now, that means this is a person who wants to carry out a litmus test through these by-elections. At time, we think that they fit the office. You see? So does it mean that even if they mess the whole process of a by-election this time round, that is when they come out to tell us that now we have seen where the problem was and we are going to rectify that one come the year 2027. They will have messed the people. Therefore, for me, the IEBC must be very clear. Finding the Gaspol constituency candidates 1 million alone is not enough for me to be convinced that indeed we have a working commission into the office.
What can they do different? What can they do different? Because with the case of Kasipul, we've seen them on the forefront. They have done press releases. They have called for dialogue in Kasipul. Security agencies have been involved. What can they do different for you to rank them at a higher level? Okay, for them to look different, they must do something differently. And that is to mean, if you are very keen, or if you are very keen, the previous commissioners were being compromised by the government of the day, to an extent that even they were being coerced to do things that the commission do not allow them to do. So given that Erastus Edegon Edung is an ally of the advisor to the president, I'm talking about the former governor of Turkana, Mr. Josephat Nanok, we are already worried that maybe that chain of, leadership that I've mentioned, that connection, it may raise some political questions and the commission's credibility on how it is going to carry out this election or this exercise. Because we have experienced a scenario whereby those people who are in office and are directly or indirectly linked to the president, they bring about the election process to be in problems, because this is a person who may later say that the president asked me as the former governor of Turkana to bring you closer so that you can be appointed as the commission's chair. So you must return the hand by ensuring that when you carry out the process, you favor the current government. You see, those are some of the temptations that the IEBC chair may be in right now, to ensure that despite the fact maybe that the government is spending a lot to ensure that on the ground it attracts or rather hoodwinks the people to vote for it, for their candidate, the IEBC at the same time may be also planning to do bad things just to make the president happy that indeed I chose a person who is favoring me. Right.
Yeah, so they should stand their ground to say that we are a neutral office and nobody should dictate us on how we carry out our duties. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Edwin, from where you sit, by the end of the by-elections, after the results are out, what needs to have happened in between for IEBC to sit and assess that they've actually done a great job in how they handled these by-elections?
Now, a number of things, but before I get to that, let me just say one thing. Okay, I'm not exactly bothered by where the chairman of IEBC comes from, or who he knows, or what language he speaks. But the position of IEBC chairman and the position of the commissioners is in our constitution. What they're supposed to do is in the constitution. And my thinking is that this is a question of process. I think as a country, we seem to be very thin on respecting processes. We don't need the chairman of IEBC to reinvent IEBC. We just need the chairman of IEBC and his commissioners and his people to work the way IEBC is supposed to work. If we take the example of Kasipul, the two gentlemen were called. They were fined 1 million. What did they do? I think 2 people died in Kasipul Kabondo because of violence. The IEBC is saying that again, if you repeat this mistake or do something worse, we will now probably remove you from. What would be worse than the loss of life? 2 people lost their lives because of politics. In my view, this was an opportunity for IEBC to show people that this is not going to be business as usual. If people are going to lose their lives because of how you carry out your campaigns, you should be removed from campaigning. And you should be removed from running for office. Because if you remember, when the former MP for Kasipul passed on, there was always the discussion that there had been violence in Kasipul. And you can see the same violence going on. So for me, I'm therefore building from that, what IEBC needs to do. Because sometimes the game, not even sometimes, the game is as good as the referee. Because it's the referee that ensures that the game is being played on a level playing field. And there are rules of how the game should be played. It is up to IEBC to ensure that rules are followed, to ensure that processes are followed. We are not asking IEBC to do anything different, to go to heaven, to do what. We just want them to put their foot down, to ensure that if you don't follow the process, if you don't follow the law, then IEBC comes clamping down on you. IEBC has a duty, and I agree, this is going to be a test case for them. This would have been an opportunity for IEBC to set the stage for 2027, to ensure, to tell political parties that, look here, if you don't follow the law, the way a party is supposed to follow the law, we will come down on you. It was an opportunity to tell the executive, if you are going, and I can see as the speakers campaigning, I can see ministers campaigning, I can see civil servants campaigning, and IEBC is doing nothing. It's ma'am. I think this is time for, I think if you call it, we needed an activist IEBC to come out and tell people. Because IEBC has a problem of people asking, is this IEBC different? We now have a youthful chairman, we have new members of the commission. They have an opportunity to tell us that we are going to set the stage for 2027. And if you make mistakes, we are going to come hard on you. I think they still have time, but they haven't used that opportunity well. I'm hoping that in the remaining time, they're going to use that opportunity to set the stage for how our politics will be. Because, you know, they talk about garbage in, garbage out. If our processes are not followed, and we get into our parliament the wrong people, then we can't change our governance if the people we bring in are not the right people. I think IEBC needs to be the ally of the people. And how does it become the ally of the people? By ensuring that this is a process for the people, not a process for political parties, not a process for the executive. And IEBC should help to set that in motion.
Right. You know, Robert, to Edwin's point, this is a people's process. It's not a process for the top guns or you know, institutions. It's actually a process for the people, because it's them who will be exercising their democratic right. If they don't turn up to vote, I mean, that's a different story. And you know, let's talk about this voter apathy, because it has been a problem, especially with the 2022 polls. And so this is also something that it will be on the watch of a lot of people's eyes on whether people will actually come out and vote for the candidates that they would want to win in these by-elections. Okay,
for me, voter apathy is not being brought, it's not always brought by the people themselves. Right. Sometimes it is still the commission to blame. You realize that, for example, right now, in as much as we are saying that the window for continuous voter registration is open, some areas are inaccessible maybe, and this is not a process that we are doing it over the phone. like we may do some other processes. This is a process that ensures that the voter has turned up in person, physically to the required office of the IEBC. Therefore, given that some areas are remote areas and these voters may not access the service easily, I think the IEBC will also have facilitated situations whereby we see them dispatching officials on the ground to meet these voters. The government, if it was serious also, it will organize some events, not political ones. You come up with an event in a given ground, for example, entry, there is no entry fee, and then you can also ensure that before someone enters, maybe we have musicians who are going to perform in that particular event, you ensure that those people who want to attend, and of course they'll turn up, just like the way they normally turn up during political rallies. What if we made sure that if in Malava constituency, the rally is going to take place in the Buhungu Stadium, before you enter, you must verify that you are a registered voter. People are going to turn up. So sometimes, even if we put it that it is the process of the voter, not the commission or the government, we have also to blame the government at one point. Which efforts does the government put in place to ensure that indeed it is a government for all the people, including those ones who don't support it, so that all of them at the end of the day turn up in large number to register as voters for them to exercise their rights?
Yeah, and wouldn't one argue that the events that have happened over the last 2 years, with the Gen Z demonstrations and, the sort of interest that picked amongst people to want to participate in democratic processes, would that also be a push that, let's come out, let's have a say on who gets into this office? Rather than just, being passive and allowing other people to vote, and you'll be okay with whoever really comes into office.
Okay, it is unfortunate that for the Gen Z you just mentioned, unfortunately, now on the side of the voter, they are not turning up in large numbers to register, leave alone registering. You may fail to register and you have your ID card. Majority of them do not have ID cards. And the only area I would want to commend the government is when I had at one point Kipchumba Murkomen visiting in Nakuru, Shaba Boeri, and he told us that he was now going to make the acquisition of the ID card free. I'm yet to confirm if indeed they are not charging for the people to pick the ID cards, or there are allegations that maybe the Huduma centers are still charging them. But if not so, then I'll blame the Gen Zs, because when you look at the data, the IBC data, still Gen Zs are so much behind when it comes to registration. Now that is a worrying trend, because when you base on what they did when they came out in the year 2024, around June up to August, when they were demonstrating because of the illegitimate financial bill, you remember, which had just been passed by the president, and he later threw it away. You realize that their ambition was to change Kenya and put Kenya at a better place. But you realize now, if, for example, the same government has opened the window for them to register and they are not turning up, they'll have themselves to blame. They will not exercise their rights, and eventually they will not have a different person whom they will wish that he makes decisions based on their wish, and by not infringing maybe the rights of the members of parliament and all that. Because we believe that right now the executive is also interfering with the lawmakers, the judiciary, and all that. So for Gen Zs to get what they really want, I'll urge them that they acquire the IDs and go to register. After registering, they also have to ensure that they are turning up. And these by-elections were the best for us to actually know that indeed Gen Zs are going to bring change. Differently from what we saw in the year 2022 and other elections.
Right. Dr. Edwin, what would be your thoughts on how would gauge how much people come out to vote within these by-elections? Because we've been talking about how this is in some ways a reflection of 2027. And so if we have young people come out, if we have more numbers registered as voters, or at least who actually vote and counted as voters compared to 2022, will this reflect that there's an interest in people to not just be passive anymore, but be active in these democratic processes, in the decision making at the ballot?
You know, I'm a big believer in the agency of the people. The fact that it's the people who determine the kind of politics that they want. It's the people who determine the kind of leaders that they get. It is the people who determine the issues that carry the day. When you look at the by-elections taking place, you hear about the fight between Professor Kindiki and Rigiji in Mbere, you know. You hear the fight about Wetangula and Mudavadi and Natembea and I don't know who in Malava and Kabuchai. Yeah. You go to coast and you hear about the PS for, I think, for energy, you know, the former governor of Mombasa, you know, and the speaker of the Senate, Kingi, you know, in Magarini. In none of these issues do you hear local issues. In none of these issues do you hear people on the ground saying that this is what you want to do. In none of these issues do you hear that somebody was in a town hall speaking to women or speaking to youth or speaking to farmers or speaking to business people. None of these are you hearing this, you know. All you're hearing is just decibels about politics, about two-term, about one-term. And so for me, I want to zero this on the agency of the people. That our people need to realize that this is their government. This is their constituency. This is their ward. This is their governance. And they are picking somebody to run their agenda. And so for me, I don't want to blame these leaders, because leaders will do anything they can do to get into office. It is up to the people to set the standard of the kind of leaders that they want. It is up to the people to set the standard of the issues that they want to discuss. I think for me, this is an opportunity for constituents, whether in Mbere or in Magarini or in Kasipul or in Banisa, or to show that they are focused on the issues and they know the kind of leaders that they want. And so for me, I urge the people to go out there when they're going to vote this week and to pick leaders who speak about their issues. To show our leaders that the people will no longer be confused by national issues when the issue they want to deal with are basic issues on the ground. Right. I think our people can change our leaders if our people can show that they are focused on the issues that touch their lives. Yeah. Issues on education, issues on healthcare, issues on infrastructure. We need issues that address the lived experiences of the people. In the politics that I see today, I see people speaking about their needs. Leaders are speaking about their need to have two-term, their need to defeat another leader. They are not speaking about the needs of the people on the ground. And they are not going to do that unless the people on the ground themselves say that going forward, unless you're speaking about us. I hear there's a saying that there's nothing for us without us. If you are going to speak about how you are going to move this country to Singapore and we are not part of that conversation, it's just your own hallucination about moving forward, we are not going to be with you. Yeah. If you are going to talk about two-term and you are not talking about our issues, that is your story, it's not our story. I think for me, it is an opportunity. And for me, I'm calling about the people to claim back their space. They are the people. I think my fear today is that I think this country is still run as if we were in the old constitution, in the independence constitution. We are not focusing as if we are under a new dispensation in the 2010 constitution where the people are supreme. I think the people don't realize how important they are. I have the president saying that Kenya happens to be punching below its weight. And I agree. And I think the people are obviously punching below their weight.
Right.
The people need to realize how important they are, because this politics won't change because our leaders have changed, because they will not change. This politics is going to change because the people demand better.
Right.
And therefore leaders are going to step up to it.
Right. As we wrap this conversation, it will be fair that we also just touch a bit on the State of the Nation address by President William Ruto last week, and I'll just give you an opportunity to quickly comment about it. You know, Robert, we saw, I mean, one thing that really stood out was the reaction from members of parliament. Our legislative organ, by the way, should be independent. You know, I was going through some of the reactions online, and a Kenyan was talking about the president actually should be very scared of facing parliament because, you know, once you've addressed, there are a lot of questions that may rise concerning what he's done. Is it true? Is it false? But the reaction was quite different, with members of parliament, you know, chanting two-term at the floor of the National Assembly during the State of the Nation address. What is your view about that, as well as just the entirety of the address?
Okay, for me, that was so embarrassing to come from the quarters of the National Assembly, a house that for that matter should be overseeing the performance of the president, that is the executive, and it will not be as a result of surprise when you hear months later that you are bribed, because these are the people whom we have been seeing being used by the government to pass draconian and oppressive bills to the people. And you see, the president at one point came out to say that these people are so corrupt. He bashed them. You know, months later, they are the same people who are chanting two-term during the president's State of the Nation address. So it is embarrassing in the sense that whereas they were to raise pertinent issues that the president had left out, issues such as the capitation money to our schools, because one thing you need to remember is that most of the schools closed earlier than expected, just because they didn't have enough monies that they are used to receiving from the government of the day. Recently, before the president also read the same State of the Nation address to the members of parliament, you also had heard that the concerned ministry, through the Minister of Education, Mr. Julius Ogamba Migosi, came out and told us that the capitation is going to drop, that one of the free education. That is something which John Mbadi had also earlier on told the people, but they ignored, that the free education funding was to drop from 22,244 shillings to a possible 12,780 shillings. And now my question is, if this money for the previous terms was there, and still we were seeing our poor parents having their children going back home for school fees, what will now happen if schools open amidst the drop in the funding from 22,000 to 12,000? That is a looming crisis in waiting. So such like issues were the ones we were anticipating to see. Our MPs asking the president genuinely, how are you going to tackle this? But an elected representative of the people chanting two-term, and then at the same time the president also acts to be emotional. That is none of the business of a child who is going to be locked out of the school compound because the parent is poor. At the same time, you realize that the president was also addressing the issue of agriculture, saying that our country, Kenya, spends up to a whopping 500 billion every financial year on imports alone. And he asserted that because of the efforts that his administration has put in place, then he's also going to ensure that Kenya moves from being a net import to a net export. That will only materialize if the president had shown us efforts that could elevate the agricultural sector into the caliber of Singapore.
Right.
But we cannot boast that our productivity will get to the level of exporting. At time the same administration had been accused before that it was selling the fertilizer that was meant to be a donation to its people. Same administration procured fake fertilizer that was later on repackaged by the minister concerned Maybe someone else was behind him, and it was sold to the people, only for the people, the farmers, to discover that it was full of sand in those sacks. That one was intervened by the member of parliament from Bumula, Jack Wamboka, who brought a motion that led into the impeachment of Bithika Linturi. Yeah. Unfortunately, his former PM, Mr. Karanja, was brought again before he was replaced by Mutahi Kagwe. Now, that one shows that there is still a lot to do for the president to say that Kenya can be a net exporter to other nations across the world. Right. So those were some of the misses that I observed. And lastly, also in the same docket of education, you realize that we just discovered that some of the teachers who are high school teachers are yet to be told with the new system of education, CBC, so that they undertake now, or they take over from those counterparts from primary who have done away with these students of grade 8 and are headed to the junior secondary. Right. So there is also a crisis that we may experience. Okay. Those are some of the key areas that our president ignored and rather became emotional because he was being chanted to term to term. All right.
Dr. Edwin, this first world aspirations, where did it come from? Because we've seen the president over the last few days talk about, we need to be a first world country. We are not yet there. Hatujafika penye tunafaa tukue. I mean, where does this come from, and where are we supposed to actually be?
This is not the first State of the Nation address. Actually, the Constitution requires the president every year to give the people the State of the Nation address. And maybe let me just contextualize what the State of the Nation address is. This is not a favor that the president does Parliament. It's not something the president does because he's idle or because of something. This is something that is situated in our Constitution. Article 132, 1 and then B. And this is what it is. This is our governance architecture. And it is a job evaluation of the president. And he is coming to the people. It's a very serious thing. He's coming to the people to say, look here, my people. This is what I promised you in 2022. This is what I have been doing since then. And this is how far we've gone. And this is how far we've remained to reach my end of the first term. Yeah. So it is not a promise. It is not a manifesto. This is a report card. Now, since the president cannot call each and every Kenyan to give them the report card, then the president goes to Parliament to speak to the people through their representatives. So and that's why when the State of the Nation address is there, the judiciary is there, Parliament is there, and the executive is there. Why is the president coming to Parliament? He is coming to the people. Indeed, the Parliament is an interview panel, and there is listening to an applicant who was given a job, and he's telling them, since you gave me the job, and given the job description of this job, this is how well I have done the job. Members of Parliament are supposed then to oversight this speech. They're supposed to ask hard questions, to ask for evidence, to see if indeed the job applicant is doing as was expected. Yeah. What does Parliament do? Parliament becomes a cheering squad. They're chanting 2 terms, they're chanting 1 term. I mean, they have sullied an otherwise important process in our Constitution, and they've made it a joke. The president was good in terms of giving us a vision of where he wants to go. But again, I have a problem with the president's vision. It is the president's vision. It is not the people's vision. So the president has lost us. The president came to us in 2022 and gave us a vision. We expected us to give us a report on that vision. Instead, midway through his term, he has come up with a completely new vision. Now, since this new vision is about promises, is about aspirations, even Parliament cannot oversight him because now there's no evidence, because you're telling us what you are going to do going forward. I would love us to become Singapore yesterday. But Singapore did not become Singapore because they wished to become Singapore. Singapore became Singapore because they did the heavy lifting. There's a joke, if you see on YouTube, there's the day when the president said that you don't need rain, you need water. I don't know what exactly he meant, but what the young people have taken is this the president who doesn't want to invest in the heavy lifting. Okay. He wants the water without planting trees to bring rain. In other words, this is a government that wants the benefits of development, but without doing the hard work of development.
Right.
I think what our president needs to do, this performance, and you know, with due respect, our president is a performer in terms of speaking to the gallery. He knows what the people want, but instead of doing the hard work of what the people want, he promises them. So he has promised us Singapore.
Okay.
And we are happy with that.
Yes.
But we know that we won't become Singapore unless we do the hard work.
Right.
And the hard work means that we follow the law. The hard work means that we put good governance in place. The hard work means that we follow merit, not loyalty. And if you look at these by-elections, everything is screaming loyalty. Loyalty. Nothing is screaming meritocracy. I think for us to move forward is for us to go to reset buttons and ask ourselves, where is the problem? How do we need to go forward? It is good to have a vision, but a vision without a plan is hallucination. So our vision of Singapore without putting things in place is just a hallucination. We will not get there.
All right. Gentlemen, we're out of time. Allow me to wrap this conversation up this morning, but there's a question that has come in, and I'd love just a yes or no from you. Simon Peter says, watching, is it okay for government machinery to go and campaign?
No.
Robert?
No.
Just a yes or no?
No.
Oh, okay. I know. So allow me to wrap it up at that point this morning. Thank you very much. On my immediate right, Dr. Edwin Wangolia, lecturer at Pwani University. And next to him is Robert Makoha, political analyst, as well as aspirant for the Nakuru Township Member of Parliament seat. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this morning. We wrap it up at that point. Today is the last day of campaigns. By 6 p.m. they should be done. The Constitution states not 48 hours to the election. So that means everything that these candidates need to say, they need to say it today. So we'll be keeping our eyes on the ground to just monitor that as well. Thank you for watching Morning Live. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a wonderful morning ahead.